Are you out of your mind? Or in your right mind? What on earth are you thinking? CEO Kim Hak-sung threw today's sports newspaper onto the table, shouting. Wearing a dark blue shirt with a brown suit and a pocket square, he looked like a wealthy D&G model. Though close to 40, his well-maintained skin and the muscular body visible through his high-end suit made him look much younger. He tore at his perfectly styled hair, done at a Gyeongdam-dong hair salon where even with a reservation, you had to wait a month if you weren't a member, and yelled ferociously. How many times is this? Huh? Last time, manager CHA barely managed to shake off the reporter. What did you say back then? There won't be another incident like this. The man lounging on the deep brown sofa responded with a smile. It was a refreshing smile, like the scent released when you peel a fresh orange. His bright-dyed hair enhanced his charm even more. And there won't be any more close calls either. He spoke with a confident tone, as if he had the world in his palm. No more close calls. Don't you see this? CEO Kim pointed to the corner of the entertainment section on page 16. The article hinted that top star S was seen having a secret date with a rookie actress in a car. Who reads initial articles on page 16? I do. Well, you read it because it's your job. No one else reads it, no one. Although what he said wasn't wrong, CEO Kim pounded his chest with his fist. He actually wanted to pound the chest of the man sitting in front of him but settled for hitting his own. The man on the sofa looked down at the newspaper with an interested face as if reading about someone else's scandal. How is a guy like you ranked as the #1 celebrity with no aunties? Seriously. As if he didn't like the fact at all. Then why don't you become anti-#1, CEO? At the man's words, CEO Kim's fist shook with rage. People instinctively judge others based on their own standards. CEO Kim often said that terms like objective perspective are nonsense. He believed that the moment words pass through the head and come out of the mouth, they inevitably carry subjectivity. Therefore, it's impossible to make everyone with their own standards like you. However, there was one person who managed to do it, Lee Woo-yeon, sitting right in front of CEO Kim. Lee Woo-yeon, who started his career in the entertainment industry with an independent film a few years ago, was an actor who had never experienced a slump. In his first supporting role in a drama, he garnered more spotlight than the main character and was quickly cast in a leading role by director Park Sung-han, attracting widespread attention. His exceptional acting skills and a face with a mysterious charm that made it hard to guess his nationality and age ensured his rising popularity after the movie's release. In that year, he won both the Best New Actor and the Best Actor awards, reaching the top of the entertainment industry within a year of his debut. In the entertainment industry, the rule was that once you rise, you will eventually fall, but this did not apply to Lee Woo-yeon. The dramas he starred in consistently exceeded 40% viewership, the scripts he chose became huge hits, and the products he advertised made advertisers dance with joy. The products he endorsed received unwavering support from consumers, especially women, to the point where economic magazines wrote editorials claiming that the brand Lee Woo-yeon itself was equivalent to a brand's existence. People liked Lee Woo-yeon. He had an aristocratic appearance rarely seen, a beautiful smile revealing his even teeth, excellent acting skills, and a talent for singing. Everyone who had worked with him, even once, praised his genius to no end. Women particularly loved his eyes. His eyes, imbued with both the profound despair of an old man who had seen all of life's ups and downs and a purity that belied his age, were extremely beloved. Among his fans, there were even somewhat creepy discussions about designating his eyes as national treasures and preserving them by any means necessary after his death. Opinions about Lee Woo-yeon's background were varied. Apart from the fact that he was a Princeton graduate, very little was known about his background. Speculations ranged from him being the grandson of a famous foreign company to being the illegitimate child of a famous actress, but nothing was confirmed. CEO Kim Hak-sung found it astonishing that even these mysterious aspects added to Lee Woo-yeon's charm. However, Lee Woo-yeon was not without flaws. He liked women. CEO Kim argued that whoever first coined the phrase, "doesn't stop the girls coming and doesn't cling to the ones leaving," should be paid royalties by Lee Woo-yeon. This current scandal might narrowly be avoided, but CEO Kim was concerned that if things continued this way, it wouldn't be long before Lee Woo-yeon made the front page of a sports newspaper. Lee Woo-yeon, however, always did as he pleased, regardless of such concerns. CEO Kim would grumble that Lee Woo-yeon lived as if he would die tomorrow. Please, just be careful. What are you going to do if your career as a celebrity ends? Well, I haven't decided yet. I'm still considering my options. What did I believe in to raise a guy like you? CEO of JN, Kim Hak-soon, often reminisced about the day Lee Woo-yeon audaciously visited his office asking to debut as an actor. He almost kicked him out, thinking he was crazy, but Lee Woo-yeon's neat and handsome face made him dismiss the security guard he had called. There will be no problem, Lee Woo-yeon said, skimming through the corner article. His smile was as carefree as ever. Lee Woo-yeon was always like that. His eyes exuded an inexplicable confidence. Of course, there won't be any. Not when this is on the front page. CEO Kim spread out the front page of the sports newspaper on the table again. If it weren't for this, you might have made the front page. The headline was quite shocking. A female idol jumps off her agency building. Another suicide. Manager CHA murmured, reading the front page with a pale face. The article detailed that a female idol had jumped off a building rooftop early this morning and died, filled with sensational phrases. Lee Woo-yeon sat there, looking uninterested. And as of yesterday, manager Kim quit. Again. Manager CHA asked in surprise. Yes, again. Again and again. CEO Kim gritted his teeth as he added. This was already the 8th time this year. The irregular lifestyle and uncertain income made it difficult for managers to last long. Those working for large entertainment companies enjoyed benefits like health insurance and bonuses, making their jobs considered divine in the industry. Among them, JN offered the highest salaries and benefits, making it a coveted place for aspiring managers. Working at a good company naturally expanded one's network and allowed for learning proper know-how, leading many to dream of starting their own entertainment companies. Especially, the more popular the celebrity one managed, the more power the manager had. Managers often took pride and worked hard when their celebrities thrived. The fact that Korea's top star Lee Woo-yeon's manager kept changing suggested that Lee Woo-yeon himself was the problem. However, Lee Woo-yeon was known for having a good personality. Voted as the celebrity who best suited coffee advertisements for several years, he was well liked by those around him. He was never late and always treated staff with respect. It was common for rookies to become arrogant as they gained popularity, but Lee Woo-yeon remained consistently polite and courteous, making him popular among colleagues. This is all because of your rotten personality. No way. Lee Woo-yeon answered with a laugh. His face looked as warm and amiable as ever, but CEO Kim knew the filthy truth hidden behind that angelic mask. What did you do to harass him this time? Me? I've never done that. Did manager Kim say I harassed him when he left? Manager Kim had not said a word blaming Lee Woo-yeon when he quit. He had simply left, saying he was too incompetent and lacking to continue working as a manager. See? Lee Woo-yeon said, pulling out his phone with his elegant, long fingers. Seeing Lee Woo-yeon's face, which seemed to say, I knew it, made CEO Kim furious. All the managers who had handled Lee Woo-yeon cited the same reason when resigning. They felt they were not capable enough to manage Korea's top star, Lee Woo-yeon, and apologized. Once or twice might have been acceptable, but it had happened 8 times this year alone, so CEO Kim could not help but suspect Lee Woo-yeon. Surely that devilish man had done something to drive the managers away. How had he tormented them so cunningly? Suspicion sprouted like Jack's beanstalk. Stop saying that the managers quit because I harassed them, CEO. Then why do they all quit for the same reason? I don't know. How would I know that? In fact, Lee Woo-yeon did not have a good personality. He deceived people with his good looks and gentle tone, but he was far worse than simply having a bad personality. And he didn't bother to act friendly in front of CEO Kim. That was true even now. Despite the news of a fellow entertainer jumping to her death, Lee Woo-yeon showed no emotion. By the way, what happened that she jumped off a building? Really? Manager CHA clicked his tongue and read the article, shaking his head in apparent sorrow. Lee Woo-yeon remained indifferent, sending a text message on his phone. Who knows? It's unfortunate, anyway. So young. Saying that, CEO Kim glanced at Lee Woo-yeon. When their eyes met, Lee Woo-yeon flashed his signature coffee-scented smile and said, "There's an order to come, but not to go." No matter how sorry we feel, she's already dead. What can we do? If he could, CEO Kim would have liked to cover his head and lie down right then. Did he really think that was appropriate to say? Don't you have any empathy? Of course, I was just trying to console you both. Anyone unaware of Lee Woo-yeon would be fooled by his tone, but CEO Kim knew the filthy truth hidden behind that sleek mask. How hard must it have been for her to make such a choice at such a young age? It breaks my heart to think about it. Lee Woo-yeon murmured, pressing his palm to his chest. It was hard to believe that the person who had just spoken so coldly about life and death was the same person. CEO Kim and manager CHA were the only ones who knew Lee Woo-yeon's true nature. They also knew that the heartfelt tone he had just used was entirely fabricated. Lee Woo-yeon felt no sympathy for the deceased girl, not even a shred. He was that kind of person. A black suit is ready. Go pay your respects. As soon as CEO Kim finished speaking, Lee Woo-yeon turned his head with a puzzled look. Attending these events and showing condolences improves your public image. Can my image get any better? Even if it's a hassle, you have to go. You represent our agency's face. Who said it's a hassle? Of course, I'll go. Lee Woo-yeon said, looking like he was already fed up, as he stood up. Manager CHA will take you. I've prepared a black suit, white shirt, shoes, and non-prescription glasses. And when you get home, the new manager starting tomorrow will drive and introduce themselves, so don't harass them. I didn't harass anyone. No matter what he said, CEO Kim was certain that the string of resignations from managers had to do with Lee Woo-yeon's machinations. Journalists will swarm, so handle it well. Don't stir up unnecessary trouble. Unnecessary trouble? Lee Woo-yeon turned his head, as if genuinely curious about what that meant. Women. Ah, women. He laughed softly, his head slightly bowed. Women melted at that low, pleasant voice that caressed the ears. It wasn't hard to find men in the entertainment industry who were more handsome or had better proportions than Lee Woo-yeon. One of the many reasons he stayed at the top was his voice. Actresses who had worked with him in dramas or movies unanimously praised his voice. They claimed, with a touch of exaggeration, that if he whispered a confession of love into any woman's ear, she would inevitably fall for him. Lee Woo-yeon knew better than anyone how his voice affected others. He laughed a low, chocolatey laugh and asked, "Do I look like the kind of jerk who would cause trouble with women at a funeral?" "Yes, you do, you bastard." CEO Kim swallowed his words and gestured for him to leave. Lee Woo-yeon smiled, said goodbye, and left. As the headache began to set in, CEO Kim took out some medicine and poured water into a cup. Manager CHA, hesitating for a moment, asked carefully, "What's the new manager like, CEO?" Kim Hak-soon, after swallowing a gulp of water, replied, "Someone who won't quit, no matter what." CHA Hyun-kyu, manager CHA, was smoking a cigarette. He had come because CEO Kim told him to keep an eye on Lee Woo-yeon, but funeral homes always felt unsettling. He disliked the reporters loitering around, trying to catch a story, and the girl idol group subtly jockeying for position even in this somber setting. Even after working in this field for over 10 years, these moments made him feel disillusioned. He felt a vibration in his pocket and pulled out his phone while keeping the cigarette in his mouth. Yes, this is CHA Heinkiu. Ah, yes. I'm in front of the hospital's main gate, so come here. Call me when you arrive. Yes, understood. After ending the call, he put out his cigarette. The new manager for Li Wuyan was apparently nearby. He remembered CEO Kim's words that this new person was someone who would never quit. TCH, what bad luck. Li Wuyan had a bad personality. Only CEO Kim and manager CHA knew his true nature. Initially, even manager CHA thought Li Wuyan was an angel. His consistent hard work, politeness, and humility made him an exemplary figure that other celebrities in the same agency were encouraged to emulate. He learned about Li Wuyan's dark side purely by chance. CHA Heinkiu pulled out another cigarette and lit it. The acrid smoke flowed into his lungs. Wow, it's Li Wuyan. He's a celebrity, a celebrity. Looks handsome, doesn't he? Li Wuyan. It seemed like two passing men had glimpsed inside the room when the waiter opened the door. It was rare for such encounters with drunken men to end well. Li Wuyan had expressed concern about this exact scenario when CEO Kim suggested celebrating the safe completion of a recent drama. CEO Kim insisted on a room with a nice atmosphere, practically dragging Li Wuyan along. Since the CEO insists, Li Wuyan reluctantly followed. Typically, his life revolved around the set, home, and the gym, so this was a special outing arranged by CEO Kim. He believed that sometimes letting loose was necessary to maintain human charm. Kim Hak-soon, known for his strict professionalism, found it remarkable that he could say this. Li Wuyan's life was so upright that those around him wondered what fun he had in life. The waiter, startled, tried to close the door, but the men had already barged into the room. Wow, seeing him in person, he looks good. You're Li Wuyan from that drama, what was it, something about the wind, right? Nice to meet you. Li Wuyan stood up without showing any displeasure, answered with a yes, and extended his hand for a handshake. My niece likes you. Can you sign a few autographs? Maybe take some pictures. Or better yet, give me your number so I can have her talk to you later. I'll do it later. Right now, other people are here. I'm sorry. Li Wuyan bowed politely. But it didn't matter to the drunken men. What? You're not going to sign? Fuck, acting all high and mighty. The atmosphere turned grim instantly, and CEO Kim's face darkened. The waiter hurried to usher the men out, but it was futile. Guests, there are other customers here, so you need to leave. Asshole. Do you even know who I am? Telling me to leave. Do you know who backs this place? It's Song's place, isn't it? Do you know who supports him? Get out while I'm being nice, you asshole. They were clearly not quality people. While the waiter was at a loss, one of the men picked another fight with Li Wuyan. Is it that hard to sign? I'm sorry. Everyone in the room knew that their demands wouldn't stop at just autographs. You're just a rookie, what makes you so high and mighty that you can't sign? CEO Kim signaled manager CHA with his eyes. CHA Heinkiu quickly stood up to defuse the situation. I'm sorry. He's had too much to drink to sign anything. Please understand. Too much to drink. The man scrutinized Li Wuyan's face. He had had a few drinks but wasn't visibly drunk. Li Wuyan apologized once more. Then pour me a drink. The man lifted a glass from the table. Even if you're drunk, you can pour a drink, right? Let me drink a glass poured by a celebrity. Then I'll leave. Li Wuyan hesitated briefly before picking up the whiskey bottle and filling the glass. As the glass filled with expensive whiskey, the man seemed satisfied and said, "That's enough. He raised the glass to his thick lips and suddenly called out, "Hey," to Li Wuyan. As Li Wuyan looked up, the man splashed the whiskey in his face. It happened in an instant. Whiskey trickled down Li Wuyan's sharp jawline. "You disrespectful bastard." The man threw the glass onto the table and left the room. The waiter hurriedly left to fetch a wet towel. "Are you okay?" CEO Kim asked. Li Wuyan smiled and replied, "I'm fine." God, there are always people like that wherever you go. Manager CHA took a handkerchief out of his pocket and tried to wipe Li Wuyan's face. Li Wuyan raised his hand to brush off Manager CHA's handkerchief. "You'll end up throwing the handkerchief away. I'll wipe it with the wet towel when it arrives." "I'm sorry. I arranged this outing for your enjoyment." CEO Kim Hak-sung offered an apology. Li Wuyan responded with his usual refreshing smile. "No need to apologize, CEO Kim. I consider this all part of gaining social experience." Both Kim and CHA felt a strange sense of guilt. Li Wuyan even thanked the waiter who brought the towel. Despite the incident happening because the waiter didn't close the door immediately, he neither got angry nor showed any displeasure. The waiter bowed repeatedly in apology, and shortly, the manager came to apologize as well. "Who were those people?" CEO Kim asked irritably. The manager only kept apologizing, indicating that the man's claims about connections weren't entirely unfounded. "It's fine. The alcohol will dry and I'll take a shower when I get home anyway. You can leave now." The manager left, saying that they wouldn't charge for the drinks today and to order whatever they wanted. CEO Kim, frustrated, lit a cigarette. "At least you're famous enough to be recognized by people like that." Manager CHA tried to lighten the mood with a joke, and Li Wuyan responded with a smile. It was common for people to pick fights with celebrities. In such situations, celebrities stood to lose the most, so it was best to endure. Especially with unruly people, it was wise to avoid conflict, as they could resort to threats. Li Wuyan wiped the alcohol off with the towel. He saw the man who had caused the trouble passing by outside the room. "I'm going to wash up." "You're leaving now." "The restroom is right there. I'll be fine." Li Wuyan stepped out. Manager CHA sighed and remarked, "I worry if he'll be able to handle the rough world ahead, being so gentle." "No, he may look like that, but he has a hidden strength. He'll definitely make it big." When he was cast in a minor role in a drama, the viewer response was so overwhelming that the writer adjusted the script to give him a more significant part. Rumor had it that he overshadowed the lead so much that the lead actor vowed never to work with him again. CEO Kim, who had been in the business for a long time, trusted his instincts. Li Wuyan was a big catch, and this was just the beginning. The reaction is good this time, and he'll get even better projects next. We need to choose well to make a big impact. Accepting anything and everything will only dilute his image. True. Has he received many scripts? Several have come in, but they need to be reviewed. Getting a good movie role would be great too. But why isn't he back yet? Do you think he got into trouble? As soon as Manager CHA finished speaking, CEO Kim stood up. Given that they had only poured alcohol on him because others were around, there was no telling how the thugs might act if they caught him alone. Both of them hurried to the restroom. Li Wuyan was nowhere to be found. "Call him." Manager CHA quickly pulled out his phone and tried calling Li Wuyan. The call didn't connect, and he repeatedly tried in vain. "Damn it, something must have happened. Call the manager and tell them to bring those guys here immediately, or we'll call the police." Before CEO Kim could finish, they heard something breaking from the emergency exit at the end of the hallway. They rushed in that direction. Manager CHA, on the verge of tears, muttered about how he shouldn't have let Li Wuyan go alone to the restroom. CEO Kim pushed open the heavy steel door and called out Li Wuyan's name. "Wuyan. Are you okay?" Li Wuyan was there, but not in a state they recognized. At his feet was the thug who had splashed whiskey on him, lying on the floor with foam at his mouth. Li Wuyan, who had been kicking the unconscious man, turned around without a hint of surprise. His face, adorned with a clean smile, was smeared with blood. "Your face, there's blood." Manager CHA, unable to form a coherent sentence, pointed at his face. Li Wuyan wiped it off with his palm and let out a soft laugh. "It's okay. It's not my blood." Li Wuyan kicked the man's head hard once more. CEO Kim and manager CHA involuntarily winced and grimaced at the sight. Li Wuyan wiped the blood off his shoes onto the man's clothes and continued speaking casually. "Why did you come out? It's cold. We were worried since you didn't come back, wondering if something happened." Manager CHA mumbled in a daze. They should be worried indeed. The man at Li Wuyan's feet was likely severely injured. What the hell happened here? CEO Kim was at a loss for words. They couldn't believe the sudden change in the angelic Li Wuyan, who had never once shown anger. "I ran into him on my way to the restroom." "Don't worry. I checked, and there are no CCTVs here. He won't know it was me. No fingerprints left." Li Wuyan pointed with kind eyes at the beer bottle lying on the floor. He was wearing leather gloves. Why had he worn gloves to the restroom? This all seemed too convenient to be a coincidence. CEO Kim and manager CHA looked at each other, pale and shocked. Was this really Li Wuyan? The gentle-looking man with the smooth voice was speaking these chilling words. Seeing and hearing it didn't make it any easier to believe. "I really don't understand." It was a complex statement from CEO Kim. "Do you have any other questions?" Even though they had seen his ugly side, Li Wuyan showed no embarrassment or shame. He naturally handed his blood-stained gloves to manager CHA. "Throw these away for me. It's a bit risky for me to keep them." "All right." Manager CHA reluctantly took the gloves. "I'll go back inside now." As he passed them, Li Wuyan seemed to remember something and extended his hand to manager CHA. "May I borrow your handkerchief?" "Sure." As if in a trance, manager CHA handed over the handkerchief. Li Wuyan wiped the remaining blood from his face and handed it back. "Please throw this away too." Then he closed the steel door and disappeared. From that day on, Li Wuyan no longer pretended to be good in front of CEO Kim and manager CHA. Exhaling a puff of smoke, manager CHA fell deep into thought. He was convinced that Li Wuyan had something to do with the fact that his managers couldn't last more than a few months. However, when resigning, they all consistently blamed themselves, claiming they were too incompetent to continue working with him. What exactly is he doing? Manager CHA clicked his tongue. Li Wuyan was someone who wore a mask of amiability, concealing his true actions behind the scenes. The longest any manager had lasted was 2 months. When a celebrity changes managers too frequently, it naturally raises eyebrows. Despite CEO Kim's repeated warnings, Li Wuyan would just shrug and insist he hadn't done anything. Yet, CEO Kim and manager CHA were sure Li Wuyan was doing something out of sight. They just couldn't figure out what that something was. Recalling CEO Kim's assurance that the new manager was someone who would never quit, manager CHA scratched his head. Who could this person be, who supposedly wouldn't quit no matter what? Maybe a friend who had trained in the mountains. Or perhaps an ex-special forces soldier. His voice sounded calm and kind, though. Maybe they made him sign a contract, promising not to quit because he needed the money desperately. His phone rang. Manager CHA answered, feeling that the person who would satisfy his curiosity had finally arrived. "Hello, this is Manager CHA. "Yes? What? Where? Okay, I'll be right there." "Yes." He quickly ended the call. The phone rang again almost immediately. He noticed a young man nearby, holding a phone and looking around. Manager CHA waved at him. "Over here, this way." The young man, spotting Manager CHA, hurriedly pocketed his phone and walked over. "Hello. Starting today. You must be Choi In-seop, the new manager for Lee Woo-yeon, right?" Manager CHA interrupted the young man's greeting. He knew it was impolite but was too pressed for time. "Yes, but..." "Here, take this first." Manager CHA handed him a car key and a notebook while continuing to talk. "Your job today is to introduce yourself to Lee Woo-yeon and drive him home. He should be out in about 30 minutes. He has no schedule tomorrow, so just report to the office then. There's nothing special you need to prepare for him except for cold coffee, specifically an Americano. That's all you need to know for now. The rest is in the notebook." "Yes, okay." Choi In-seop nodded, trying to keep up with the rapid torrent of words. "I need to go handle an urgent situation. If anything comes up, call me. You have my number, right?" "Yes." "See you later, then." Manager CHA was about to run off but then turned back to add one more thing. "Be careful." "Oh, okay." Before Choi In-seop could fully respond, Manager CHA had already sprinted away. Left alone in front of the hospital, Choi In-seop stood holding the notebook and car keys, bewildered. It wasn't until someone bumped into him that he snapped out of it and realized the gravity of his new situation. Get a grip. This is just the beginning. He calmly took out his camera and photographed the car keys and notebook. Click, click, click. The soft sound marked the start of something new. When Lee Woo-yeon heard that a new manager was coming, he didn't pay much attention. After all, this person would likely quit within a few months. He was used to wearing a mask in front of people. He saw his job as an extension of his daily life, a constant performance. However, having a manager who was with him almost 24/7 was a different story. He didn't like seeing the same person every day for a long time. He got tired of people quickly, just as he did with women. Meeting the same person daily went against his nature. But he couldn't fire someone without a reason. So, Lee Woo-yeon subtly burned his managers out. The term burnout was something he had picked up from a nurse-turned-model he once knew. Burn them out, thoroughly. He would make sure they couldn't even perceive the heat rising within them. Lee Woo-yeon meticulously set his managers up to fail by giving them wrong schedules or misleading information about appointments, causing them to make mistakes. He would then smile sweetly and reassure them that it was okay, encouraging them to try harder. This drove the managers to work even more diligently to make up for their mistakes. But after a series of minor errors and one major slip-up, their morale would be crushed. At that point, Lee Woo-yeon would take them out for drinks and kindly tell them that he believed in them, that it was okay, and that he would always be on their side. He assured them that they were different from others and that he knew they could do better next time. Being known for strictly separating work from personal relationships, it was rare for Lee Woo-yeon to act this way. Inevitably, the managers would be moved to tears by his gesture. The next day, they would show up with renewed determination, and Lee Woo-yeon would greet them with a warm smile. Feeling personally trusted by a top celebrity made them stand taller. Everything seemed to be going well, until the manager, intoxicated with happiness, slightly let their guard down. Lee Woo-yeon enjoyed this. Watching someone who had been so confident crumble the moment they realized they had repeated the same mistake was thrilling. As the victim of their mistakes, Lee Woo-yeon would put on a complex expression, a mix of unavoidable resentment, bitterness, and a kind smile that showed consideration. Most people quit at this point. Even those who were less perceptive eventually raised the white flag, realizing they couldn't go on. Lee Woo-yeon didn't want to keep anyone around for too long. Moreover, he relished the process of watching people break down. Human psychology was complex, but manipulating it was surprisingly straightforward. While frequent manager changes weren't good for his image, he couldn't help but enjoy the process of cutting people loose. That's why he could never stop. What did you say? A woman's voice interrupted his thoughts. Li Wuyan smiled and shook his head. He must have spoken his thoughts aloud without realizing it. What are you doing tomorrow? The young woman, much younger than Li Wuyan, who had dressed in high-end fashion and meticulously done her makeup for the funeral, asked coquettishly. I have a schedule tomorrow. Tomorrow was a rare day with no schedule at all. He had no intention of spending such a precious day off with someone like her. What about tonight then? What are you doing tonight? She was a member of a girl group who had debuted around the same time as him, so they had some familiarity. Despite having just shed tears like she had lost her best friend, she now clung to him, throwing out various flirtations. Li Wuyan found her antics amusing. Tonight won't work either. You should rest at home, Yura. I know today must have been hard on you. I'm sorry. Li Wuyan, seeing a man waiting for him at a distance, leaned in and whispered. The sound of his voice, brushing against her ear, made Zhou Yura's knees weaken, and she nodded blankly. See you next time. The soft farewell, like a breeze rustling leaves, left Zhou Yura blushing and staring dazedly at his retreating figure. Nice to meet you. The deep voice caused the man standing by the car to straighten up and raise his head. As he cautiously studied Li Wuyan, the latter could gauge the man's personality. Kind, diligent, boring. The new manager was clearly CEO Kim's type, someone who worked hard and was good-natured, making him prime prey for Li Wuyan. Li Wuyan extended his hand. Li Wuyan. I look forward to working with you. The new manager stood there, visibly tense, unable to say anything. It wasn't uncommon, some people became tongue-tied when they met a celebrity in person. Li Wuyan knew that the more he acted kind and approachable, the more it would help to put the other person at ease, which made the burning process later more satisfying. You must have had a tough time coming here in this cold weather. It's unfortunate we have to meet in such circumstances. Li Wuyan took the initiative and shook the manager's hand. The warmth from his touch made Choi In-seop flinch as if he had been burned. Aye. Li Wuyan. He gripped Choi In-seop's hand firmly and reintroduced himself. Choi In-seop. The new manager finally managed to state his name, his head bowed as if embarrassed. Li Wuyan withdrew his hand, and Choi In-seop stared at his own hand, looking like he couldn't believe the situation. Let's work well together. Li Wuyan politely opened the car door. Choi In-seop responded with a hesitant yes and got into the driver's seat. As Li Wuyan settled into the back seat, he observed Choi In-seop's driving skills. The way he handled the wheel was impressive. Good driving was crucial for a manager, as safely and swiftly transporting their charge was a key part of the job. Sometimes, people would even deliberately cause accidents upon recognizing a celebrity's car. Whether it was their fault or not, being associated with negative news was problematic for celebrities. People were more interested in sensationalism than the truth. A manager who drove poorly was easy to manipulate into making mistakes. However, this new manager didn't seem likely to fall into that category. His calm and thorough checks of the front and rear suggested a lack of exploitable gaps. No matter. Patience would reveal any weaknesses. And if not, they could be created. Li Wuyan rested his head against the seat and closed his eyes. The manager, who had been quietly driving, cautiously asked if he could play some music. This surprised Li Wuyan. For someone who could barely introduce himself, suddenly asking to play music was unexpected. He disliked listening to music that didn't match his taste. The sixth manager had been dismissed within 2 weeks because he constantly played loud girl group songs in the car. Li Wuyan would have preferred taking a taxi over enduring such music. But he couldn't reveal such preferences in front of a new manager. Sure, feel free. As soon as Li Wuyan gave permission, Choi In-seop quickly inserted a CD into the car's audio system. Li Wuyan grimaced slightly, expecting the worst, probably some annoying girl group music. He closed his eyes, relieved that his expression couldn't be seen in the darkened car. As the familiar prelude began, Lee Woo-yeon slowly opened his eyes. Historia de un amor. One of his favorite songs. There was no way the manager knew this, but it was a pleasantly surprising coincidence. He closed his eyes again and listened. Perhaps it was the smooth driving, but even the slight swaying of the car felt pleasant. The quiet lyrics floated through his mind, repeating over and over until a soft voice broke the silence. We've arrived. When he opened his eyes, they were in an underground parking lot. Choi In-seop had already gotten out of the driver's seat and was opening the door for him. Lee Woo-yeon thanked him gently, noting how unnecessary it was. You drive well. I practiced. A cautious reply came back. Lee Woo-yeon almost laughed. Who practiced driving just to become a manager? How pathetic. Lee Woo-yeon turned to look at this pathetic person. Choi In-seop stood there like a student awaiting punishment, his hands clasped in front of him. His pale skin and light freckles made him look like an underdeveloped boy. Seeing his nervous face, Lee Woo-yeon thought this one would be enjoyable to burn. Their eyes met, and Choi In-seop quickly looked away. Lee Woo-yeon bowed slightly and walked away. Thank you. Hearing the words of gratitude, Lee Woo-yeon felt a flicker of confusion. What was there to be thankful for? But soon, thoughts of the new manager vanished from his mind. Lee Woo-yeon was not the type to care about others. Take care. Yes. Choi In-seop watched until Lee Woo-yeon disappeared into the elevator. In his apartment, Lee Woo-yeon rifled through the mail, pausing when he spotted a familiar envelope. The high-quality cream-colored paper was addressed to his real name in neat handwriting. Philip Levin. A name he barely remembered, brought back each month by these letters. He opened the envelope without hesitation. Inside was a single photograph, a picture of him from high school. On the back, written in the same neat handwriting, was a line from a Rilke poem. Lee Woo-yeon smirked and slipped the photo into the back of the stack of mail. Since becoming a celebrity in Korea, he had been receiving these letters monthly. Having told no one about his background, he was initially shocked to receive the first letter, especially with a high school photo enclosed. He had wondered if it was a new form of blackmail and waited for a demand, but none came. It was the same every month, just a photo and a poem, no demands or threats. After a year, he stopped trying to identify the sender. The letters posed no harm. At first, he threw them away or burned them, but recently, he sometimes looked at their contents. Rilke. A woman in the elevator glanced back, having heard him mutter. Lee Woo-yeon replaced his stony expression with a warm smile and nodded politely. The woman, recognizing him from previous encounters in the elevator, blushed. Only after the woman got off did Lee Woo-yeon's face return to its original, expressionless state. The elevator reached the 49th floor. Lee Woo-yeon habitually reached into his pocket for his phone, then realized it was likely left in the car. It was improbable that the manager would still be there, but he decided to check anyway. As the elevator door opened to the underground parking lot, Lee Woo-yeon paused. Choi In-seop stood there, holding his phone with both hands, like a precious offering. I found your phone. Seeing the new manager holding the phone out reverently, Lee Woo-yeon felt a mix of amusement and disbelief. Thank you. How did you find it? It must have been in the back seat. Ah, yes, well. I was cleaning the back seat and found it. Lee Woo-yeon took the phone from him, thinking only how his manager's unnecessary meticulousness had saved him from an inconvenience. Choi In-seop, perhaps feeling his explanation was insufficient, added a few more words. I wasn't looking through the back seat for any other reason. Yes. Thank you. You can go now. Lee Woo-yeon wasn't in the mood to talk anymore. The exhaustion had piled up to his limit, and even maintaining a pleasant facade was becoming too much. After saying goodbye to his manager, he rode the elevator back up. As soon as he stepped into his apartment and took off his shoes, his phone rang. It was CEO Kim. He considered not answering, but knowing Kim's persistence, he knew he'd keep calling until he did, so he reluctantly picked up. "Yes, sir." "Everything okay today?" "Nothing out of the ordinary." Lee Woo-yeon replied as he threw his jacket onto the sofa. "How's the new guy?" "Who?" "Oh, the manager." He had already forgotten about the new manager during the elevator ride up. That was the extent of his interest in other people. "He seems diligent and nice enough." Anyone who cleaned the back seat the moment he got out was clearly diligent. But diligence and niceness weren't what Lee Woo-yeon wanted. He needed a new manager every 3 months. "Don't just say that. What's he really like? Think he'll stick around?" "Well, whether he stays or goes depends on his will." Lee Woo-yeon replied as he loosened his tie and sat on the sofa. "Just don't make things hard for him. It's tough to find good people, you know." The job had good conditions, so there were plenty of applicants, but that didn't mean just anyone could do it. "Yeah. I hope he stays long too." Lee Woo-yeon lied effortlessly. He hated having anyone around him for too long. No matter how good he was at hiding his true self, his rough edges inevitably showed after a while. The 3-month mark was his limit. The first time he snapped at a manager, it was over the smell of dried squid being eaten in the car, and he couldn't hold back from calling him a filthy pig. He had covered it up by saying he was practicing a script, but he knew his facade had cracked. Since then, he had used various methods to ensure a new manager every 3 months. It didn't matter who the new manager was, he'd just replace them at the right time. "Haha, he'll stick around. I'm sure of it." There was something unsettling in Kim's laughter. Lee Woo-yeon asked why. "He's a big fan of yours." "Really?" "He's seen everything you've been in, without missing a single one." Lee Woo-yeon, used to people claiming to be fans to gain favor, didn't think much of it. "That's good. He'll be good to you. Just don't give him a hard time." The phrase, "don't give him a hard time," amused Lee Woo-yeon, but he agreed and ended the call. After showering, Lee Woo-yeon found a text message from his new manager. "Hello, this is Choi In-seop. I got your number from Chief CHA. I'll be waiting in the parking lot at 6 a.m. the day after tomorrow. Have a good night." The message ended with a phrase reminiscent of a club waiter's courtesy, making Lee Woo-yeon chuckle. Turning on the audio system, he picked up the book he had been reading the night before. No one else occupied his thoughts. When the doorbell rang, he tried to ignore it, covering his ears with a pillow. The persistent ringing finally drove him to get up, muttering curses. It was 10 a.m., and having stayed up late reading, he was in no mood to be disturbed. He opened the door without checking who it was. Standing there, about to ring the bell again, was Choi In-seop, who froze upon seeing him. "What is it?" Lee Woo-yeon asked curtly. Choi In-seop stammered in response. "Today's schedule has changed. There's a shoot in the morning the day after tomorrow." A hint of annoyance crossed Lee Woo-yeon's face. It wasn't unusual for schedules to change, but some notice would have been nice. "I'm sorry." Choi In-seop bowed his head. "It's not your fault. Come in." Lee Woo-yeon said, putting on his polite mask again. As he stepped aside, Choi In-seop hesitated, looking around. "Are you going to wait outside while I get ready?" "Oh, no. I'll come in." Even after stepping inside, Choi In-seop didn't take off his shoes until Lee Woo-yeon insisted several times. Finally, he sat on the sofa, his hands on his knees, looking extremely tense. "Please, have a seat. Would you like a drink?" No, I'm fine. I'll just wait. Choi In-seop's exaggerated refusal made Lee Woo-yeon think he wasn't cut out for this job. Being a manager required not just diligence but also a certain level of shamelessness. Taking a bottle of water from the fridge, Lee Woo-yeon saw Choi In-seop sitting rigidly, looking completely out of place. How is he going to manage this job with that attitude? Well, it's not my problem. I won't see him for long anyway. He went to the bathroom to shower. Left alone, Choi In-seop began to look around. The modern, clean interior reflected Lee Woo-yeon's taste. It was remarkably tidy for a bachelor's home. The only signs of disarray were the unmade bed and the books scattered on the table. Choi In-seop quickly scanned the book titles. With a good memory, he could remember them after one glance. But he took out his phone to document them, using a silent photo app he had installed. He needed to record everything about Lee Woo-yeon to learn as much as possible. He started with the sofa. This is where he sits to watch TV or listen to music. Next, he photographed the CD collection, evidence of his interest in music. He was in the middle of photographing the CDs when Lee Woo-yeon emerged from the bathroom. What are you doing? Hi. Lee Woo-yeon, wearing a bathrobe, watched as Choi In-seop avoided eye contact. His heart pounded like a schoolboy caught misbehaving. If you see something you like, feel free to borrow it. With that, Lee Woo-yeon walked into his room. Choi In-seop's legs felt weak, and he sat back down on the sofa. Being in such close proximity to Lee Woo-yeon was still surreal. Seeing his personal space felt like a reward for all the effort he had put into getting this job. Lee Woo-yeon emerged, fully dressed, and Choi In-seop jumped up, rushing to put on his shoes. Lee Woo-yeon, amused, asked why he was in such a hurry. Take your time. There's no rush. No, it's fine. Choi In-seop put on his shoes and hurriedly opened the door, waiting for Lee Woo-yeon. He did the same when calling the elevator, standing a fair distance away once inside. Lee Woo-yeon disliked having his manager constantly hovering around him, acting all high and mighty. He quickly got rid of any manager who did. Inside the elevator, Choi In-seop stood against the wall, avoiding eye contact. Lee Woo-yeon felt that the new manager's claim of being his fan was merely a polite gesture. When they reached the parking lot, Choi In-seop asked Lee Woo-yeon to wait before fetching the car. As Lee Woo-yeon got in, he noticed bread and coffee placed on the seat. He was prepared to refuse any overly sweet coffee with cream or milk, but it was just an Americano paired with a white ciabatta from his favorite bakery. I thought you might not have had breakfast, so I prepared something for you. Thank you. Did you have breakfast, In-seop? Yes, I did. With that, Choi In-seop started the car. Lee Woo-yeon disliked the smell of food in the car, especially someone else's. Even the food he ate had to have mild smells. As he tore into the ciabatta, he recalled CEO Kim's assertion that he wouldn't be able to fire this manager. It seemed Kim had indeed been thorough in his selection this time. He felt a twinge of guilt towards Kim, who must have put a lot of thought into finding a disposable manager. Sipping the slightly cooled coffee, he looked at the back of Choi In-seop's head. I've made a reservation at the shop and picked out some outfits with Chief CHA's help. Thank you. Lee Woo-yeon commented on the new manager's efficiency and attention to detail. He noticed Choi In-seop's eyes turn red after the compliment. He remembered Kim's claim about the new manager being his fan. Was it just politeness or the truth? Curious, he asked. Is it true? Sorry. The car stopped at a red light, and Choi In-seop met his eyes through the rearview mirror. What do you mean? That you're a fan of mine. Yes, I am. Lee Woo-yeon smiled as he saw Choi In-seop grip the steering wheel tightly. It seemed to be true. He disliked having male fans even more than female fans. How do I look in person? Many people say they are disappointed when they see me up close. No, not at all. There's no disappointment. On the contrary. Choi In-seop's fervent denial was almost amusing. It was like witnessing a devout believer defend their faith. On the contrary. Lee Woo-yeon waited for him to continue with a smile. You're even more amazing in person. Thank you. I'm not just saying it to be polite, I really mean it. A honk from behind interrupted them. The light had turned green. Choi In-seop awkwardly muttered an apology and resumed driving. It's true. Really, you're the best. Lee Woo-yeon laughed softly from the back seat and waved his hand dismissively, indicating he understood. Choi In-seop fell silent again and didn't speak until they arrived at the hair salon. Lee Woo-yeon appreciated not having to make conversation, especially in the morning. A chatty manager was a top reason for firing. In that respect, the new manager had excellent qualities. At the hair salon, Choi In-seop dropped Lee Woo-yeon off first, saying he'd park the car and join him later. As Lee Woo-yeon entered the salon, the owner greeted him warmly. Do you have a shoot today? Yes, the schedule was moved up suddenly. Please take care of me. His polite manner made the hairstylists and staff smile. Among the many celebrities frequenting the salon, Lee Woo-yeon was noted for his manners. He remained humble and courteous even as his popularity soared. Your new manager seems nice. The salon owner commented while working on his hair. Lee Woo-yeon nodded slightly, affirming. He seems like a good person. Choi In-seop, seated quietly in a corner with a book, greeted the staff member who returned the car keys with a bow. The salon owner continued. What kind of person do you prefer working with? Pardon? What kind of manager do you like? Lee Woo-yeon pretended to think. Saying he disliked them all wouldn't be appropriate. Someone like Helen Keller. What? Helen Keller. The owner's surprised response made Lee Woo-yeon laugh and clarify that it was a joke. Once his hair and makeup were done, Choi In-seop quickly stood up to prepare the car. I'll get the car ready. Watching him rush out, some staff members chuckled. He's really on his toes. No rookie soldier would be that diligent. The new manager is cute. Lee Woo-yeon, who never thought of men as cute, pondered the comment as he headed out. In the car, on the way to the filming location, Choi In-seop remained silent until spoken to. Lee Woo-yeon began to understand why CEO Kim was so confident about this one. The new manager was excellent. But the problem was Lee Woo-yeon himself. Regardless of the manager's qualities, he would eventually lose his temper. It was hard to maintain a facade with someone he saw every day. His family had been the first to notice his true nature. That's why he had cut ties with them and maintained no contact. We've arrived. After a 30-minute drive in silence, Choi In-seop finally spoke. The parking lot was filled with fans who had somehow learned about the shoot. Lee Woo-yeon was amazed. He had only found out about the schedule change that morning, yet the fans were already here. The extent of their information sometimes gave him chills. Choi In-seop got out of the driver's seat and positioned himself in front of the van to create a path for Lee Woo-yeon. As Lee Woo-yeon stepped out, the waiting women erupted into ear-splitting screams. Oppa! Woo-yeon Oppa! Kaya! Oppa! Oppa, look over here! It's Sumi! Sumi is here! Hearing the name Sumi made Lee Woo-yeon's eyes flash with annoyance. The owner of that voice and name was someone who had always left him with an unpleasant feeling. Oppa! You remember me, right? I'm Sumi. Remember Sumi? Lee Woo-yeon deliberately didn't turn his head in her direction and continued walking. Choi In-seop, trying to hold back the onrushing women, was visibly sweating. No matter how competent he was still a rookie. Thrown into the midst of aggressive fans, he was at a loss and floundering. Please step aside a little. Excuse me. Thank you. Each time Lee Woo-yeon moved, Choi In-seop politely asked for understanding, though his soft voice was drowned out by the women's screams. Despite this, he kept asking. Lee Woo-yeon, watching his manager getting engulfed by the crowd, reached out and grabbed Choi In-seop's shoulder. There were tasks inside the filming location that the manager had to attend to, and he couldn't wait indefinitely. As Lee Woo-yeon pulled his manager away, a woman who had been screaming nearby lunged at him. Oppa! Remember me? I'm Jin Sumi. Sumi. She swung a paper cup at Lee Woo-yeon, spilling hot brown liquid into the air. Choi In-seop instinctively raised his hand to block it but couldn't stop all the coffee from splashing. What the? Oh my god, what's wrong with her? She's completely crazy, isn't she? Even among the surrounding women, there were voices of criticism. Drenched in coffee, Choi In-seop stood frozen, bewildered. Sumi, seemingly indifferent to the coffee she had spilled, cried out for Lee Woo-yeon to remember her. There are people like that, those who resort to rude or bizarre actions just to be remembered by the celebrity they admire. There was an internet joke about slapping a rich person or celebrity to make them fall in love at first sight. Some crazy individuals actually tried this. Lee Woo-yeon had grabbed the wrists of several women who had swung their hands at him, intending to slap him. The feeling of disgust was overwhelming. He had wanted to break those wrists but instead suppressed his anger and calmly advised them never to do such a thing again. But coffee? Throwing coffee at someone's face? What madness! A crooked smile appeared on Lee Woo-yeon's face. He reached out to grab Sumi's shoulder, but Choi In-seop intervened. Please don't. Choi In-seop spoke to the woman holding the coffee cup. Even if you get remembered in this way, it won't bring you any good. It might give you temporary satisfaction, but ultimately it will only bring you more suffering. Lee Woo-yeon watched as his manager calmly handled the crazy woman. Despite thinking of him as an awkward novice, Choi In-seop seemed quite adept at managing such situations. The woman, Sumi, began to sob, and her face turned red. Choi In-seop gestured for Lee Woo-yeon to go inside first. With a blank expression, Lee Woo-yeon turned and walked into the filming location. Hearing the commotion, the director and staff gathered around him, asking if he was okay. Lee Woo-yeon replied that he was fine but worried about his manager. Of course, he wasn't actually worried about Choi In-seop. If Choi In-seop hadn't blocked the coffee, he would have been fired within 2 days, setting a new record. The photo shoot was simple and finished in less than an hour. As Lee Woo-yeon exited, having thanked the director and staff, he still hadn't seen Choi In-seop. A few lingering fans approached Lee Woo-yeon for autographs, but he wasn't in the mood. He was still annoyed, thinking about the crazy woman who had thrown the coffee. As he approached the car, he saw Choi In-seop trembling in the cold. Seeing Lee Woo-yeon, Choi In-seop's face turned even paler. Lee Woo-yeon wondered if his claim of being a fan was true. Are you okay? Though it was a bit late to ask, it was the only thing he could say. With a concerned expression, Lee Woo-yeon stood before his manager. I'm sorry. It's my fault. No, it's not. Choi In-seop's voice was almost a whisper as he added that it was just his duty. Even after taking the brunt of the coffee, Choi In-seop looked as if he was the one at fault. Why are you standing here instead of waiting in the car? It's not dry yet. I'm sorry. His clothes were still soaked, presumably because he had tried to wash them. Seeing the coffee stains reminded Lee Woo-yeon of the crazy woman, and his face showed a hint of irritation. I'm sorry. I tried to clean it, but it didn't come off. I'm sorry. What? I know you don't like dirty clothes. I'm sorry. Would you like me to call a taxi? Or ask Chief CHA to come here? Choi In-seop seemed ready to perform seppuku over the coffee stains. Lee Woo-yeon wondered if Kim had brought him a disciple rather than a manager. Choi In-seop. Yes? It was a cold winter. Wearing wet clothes in the icy wind was enough to make one's teeth chatter. In that cold, the man, who wore the warmest facade, spoke in a voice so kind it could melt one's inner ear. Please don't call me sir. Just call me Woo-yeon. You can even call me Hyung since I'm older. I am. And don't apologize for things like this. It makes me feel worse. This is all my fault. Choi In-seop, looking dazed, barely managed to reply. No, it's just this is what I'm supposed to do. A manager helps with work, not a servant. When Lee Woo-yeon's ninth manager quit, CEO Kim, red-faced, had asked what kind of manager he wanted. Lee Woo-yeon had laughed and said, a blind, deaf, mute slave, though, of course, they should still be able to hear, speak, and see. Kim's expression had been so amusing that Lee Woo-yeon had laughed for a long time before saying it was a joke. Let's go inside. It's cold. Yes, sir. Choi In-seop followed, shivering. Lee Woo-yeon watched his new manager with amusement. Even as he took off his shoes, Choi In-seop looked like a scolded student. Lee Woo-yeon told him to shower and change into some of his clothes. Choi In-seop, though flustered and embarrassed, didn't refuse, confirming he was indeed a fan. As Lee Woo-yeon made coffee and waited for his manager to finish showering, he reflected on his decision to let him use his shower. It was unlike him, but sending the manager back drenched wasn't befitting a beloved actor like himself. Just as he thought the new manager took a long time in the shower for a man, the doorbell rang. Checking the intercom, he saw it was Yeon-min-ju, a woman he had shared drinks with a few times. Learning that she lived in the same complex, he had regretted their fling, as she had a habit of dropping by unannounced. Usually, he ignored her, but today he decided to address the situation directly and ask her to respect their mutual status as celebrities. As Yeon-min-ju spoke, a strong odor of alcohol wafted from her. When Lee Woo-yeon remarked that she seemed drunk, she glared and asked, "Yeah, I'm drunk." "So what? Did you give me something to drink?" "You're very drunk." HMPH. At least you're not pretending to be out when you're home today, Lee Woo-yeon. I saw your lights were on the other night. But when I rang the bell, why didn't you answer? I must have been listening to music and didn't hear it. Sorry. That wasn't a lie. When Yeon-min-ju had started ringing the bell, Lee Woo-yeon had put on his headphones and turned up the volume. What do you want? Why? Do I need a reason to come over? Can't I just visit? With that, Yeon-min-ju raised the wine bottle she was holding. Let's have a drink. I have a schedule tomorrow morning, so I can't drink. And I don't. Ignoring his refusal, Yeon-min-ju barged into the house. After being ignored by Lee Woo-yeon several times, her pride was hurt, and she seemed determined to confront him today. She acted as if the house were hers, rummaging through the kitchen drawers for a wine opener. Before Lee Woo-yeon could stop her, she had already opened the cork and began searching for wine glasses. Min-ju, please go home today and we can. When? You never answer my calls. Are you seeing someone else now? She stopped mid-sentence, turning her gaze toward the bathroom as the sound of running water caught her attention. It's my manager, Lee Woo-yeon said. Manager? Ha. Drinking directly from the wine bottle, she shouted, "Don't make me laugh. You think I'll believe that?" Lee Woo-yeon quietly closed the door, unsure of what might be said by a drunk and unreasonable woman. Who is she? Let me see her face. It's my manager. Really, so ridiculous. Kang So-hyun. Is it her? I heard rumors you were involved with her. Or is it Lee Jung-hwa? Please go home. You seem very drunk. As he was about to tell her never to come again, Yeon-min-ju dashed toward the bathroom. What are you doing? I want to see who it is. Who is naked and showering in Lee Woo-yeon's bathroom? Yeon-min-ju flung open the bathroom door. Choi In-seop, standing under the shower, turned around in shock. Lee Woo-yeon pulled Yeon-min-ju back. Just before closing the door, he glanced up and saw Choi In-seop's body. He closed the door without a word. Seeing that the person inside was indeed a man, Yo Minachu mumbled, "Oh, it really is the manager. I thought. Well, I'm sorry. Tell the manager I apologize. Of course, this never happened, right? Of course." Li Wuyan smiled as he grabbed her wrist and led her to the front door. His tone was polite, but his attitude was not. This didn't happen. Naturally. Right. I'll come back another time. As he opened the door and pushed her out, Yo Minachu didn't even realize she was being kicked out without her shoes because of Li Wuyan's kind smile. This didn't happen, Minachu. Oh. Li Wuyan nudged her shoes aside and added, "So, have a safe trip home." Even after the door closed, the annoyed voice of the woman could be heard outside, but Li Wuyan didn't care. Not long after, Choi In-seop, freshly showered, came out, his face flushed from the unexpected situation. "I'm sorry. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen." "No, it's fine. Did she leave?" Choi In-seop looked around the house, his face still red from the hot shower and embarrassment, looking like he might cry at any moment. "Yes, she just left." "I see." Still visibly shaken, Choi In-seop's shoulders were wet. Li Wuyan handed him a towel. "Dry off." "Oh, I'm sorry." Choi In-seop took the towel and started wiping the floor. Li Wuyan, stunned, spoke up. "No, I meant dry your hair." "Oh, this." Choi In-seop's face turned even redder. He stood up awkwardly and began drying his hair with the towel he had been using on the floor. At this point, Li Wuyan couldn't tell if he was stupid or just kind-hearted. He fetched another towel and handed it to Choi In-seop, telling him to use this one instead. Neither of them spoke. Li Wuyan, irritated by Yo Minachu's intrusion, wasn't in the mood for polite conversation, and Choi In-seop, flustered, didn't know what to say. After thoroughly drying his hair, Choi In-seop spoke first. "I should get going." "Right. It feels like I've been a burden today." "No, don't worry about it. Please forget about what happened today." Choi In-seop wasn't so clueless that he didn't understand what Li Wuyan meant by what happened today. "Yes, I will. And don't tell CEO Kim. He has enough on his plate without unnecessary worries. If Kim found out, he would undoubtedly come storming in, foaming at the mouth, demanding to know how Li Wuyan handled his women to cause such incidents. The mere thought was dreadful. Li Wuyan was a top actor at JN. While some scandals were tolerable, gracing the front page of tabloids with something like this was something even he, with his reckless personality, wanted to avoid. "Okay, I understand." Choi In-seop nodded obediently, like a well-trained dog. Li Wuyan didn't like talkative people. "You'll leave soon, won't you?" "Pardon?" "Never mind. Should I call a taxi for you?" It sounded considerate but was clearly a dismissal. Choi In-seop declined, gathering his things and heading out. Quick to catch on. Li Wuyan thought Choi In-seop was almost the perfect manager for him. Finding someone who was quiet, dedicated, quick-witted, discreet, and diligent was nearly impossible. Though he would only be around for 3 months, Li Wuyan thought he could make good use of him during that time. Where did they find someone like him? Everything was perfect, even the timing of his arrival just after manager Kim had quit. As he thought about it, the image of Choi In-seop's body, revealed when Yo Minachu opened the bathroom door, came to mind. The bathroom had been filled with steam, so the drunken Yo Minachu only noticed that the naked person was a man. However, Li Wuyan, with near-perfect vision, had clearly seen the scars on Choi In-seop's chest. Even so, he hadn't asked anything. It didn't matter right now what kind of past his gentle-faced manager had. Li Wuyan examined the label of the wine Yo Minachu had brought, then poured it down the sink without hesitation. As soon as he opened the door, Li Wuyan realized the timing was horribly off. "What the hell? You were home all along."